To support this podcast, go to positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. Once again, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Thank you and enjoy the program. Jay here, positivesarcasm.com. Recorded here from the Spare Parts Studio alongside New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast for entertainment purposes only. Like, subscribe, share, donate. Positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. Is that a dust ball? I thought I swept that. If you want to find me on Instagram at positive_sarcasm, you can email me and message me there. You can hit me up directly at my website, positivesarcasm.com. Go to the contact page. That's one way to contact. I do not market out your information, by the way. And of course, if you want to email me directly, positivesarcasm at outlook.com. Let's see here. I mentioned this. We talked about this a while back. The Backrooms. Backrooms is ultimately the Kleenex explanation of the Backrooms is a series of YouTube videos developed by Kane Pixels Parsons. And he took that idea he took that concept of the Backrooms. Now, some people can claim that they did it before him or that there's other... Okay, whatever, fine. We're going to just streamline this so that ultimately we can get to our destination here. I don't want to stop at every single freaking liquor store on the way to my destination. Speaking of liquor store, I actually went and got 2 bottles of wine the other day. Anyways, moving on! So, the Backrooms was... well, I'll give you the whole long and the short of it ultimately, because I am very, very impressed with what I saw last night. Very, very impressed with what I saw last night. It will stick with me for quite a while. So the Backrooms, and I'll read this just straight off so you guys have an understanding of, because most people they either saw the movie, didn't understand, and saw the movie with no understanding of what was before it, or they saw the YouTube series with no understanding of what came before that, or they don't know who Kane Parsons is, or whatever. The Backrooms is a collaborative internet horror mythos originating from 2019's 4chan post. 4chan is basically like Reddit. Describing an infinite non-Euclidean dimension of empty non-yellow rooms accessed by no clipping out of reality. The concept evolved from a single anonymous image later identified as a 2002 photo of a hobbytown renovation in Wisconsin into a sprawling ecosystem of user-generated content, including wikis, indie gamers, and YouTube series. Basically a game that has a general script on it. Basically, you go through this room, there's walls, there's an environment, but you can sometimes, whether it's due to a bug or through cheat codes or through creative mode, you can clip out. You can ultimately just go off the grid, go off the map, into like Foreverland. So the key elements of the lore include liminal aesthetics. The horror stems from the uncanny familiarity of mundane empty spaces like office carpets and fluorescent lightings, tapping into modern anxieties about isolation in corporate environments. Something I'm actually very familiar with. I walked into corporate environments for the last fucking 15 years of my existence before I moved on to a better life, ultimately. And that feeling of walking into an office environment which has been memed all over Instagram of basically like, yeah, Pizza Friday, or, Pizza Friday, which consists of like a thin slice of shitty pizza and like a fucking 2-liter Diet Coke that's not even Coke, it's some shitty off-brand, and and then ultimately you're just sitting in your little cubicle day in and day out, the lighting hitting you, and basically just going mad of answering the same fucking phone calls. It's mad how these are jobs that, in my opinion, should be not ultimately eliminated, but they should be greatly reduced with better technology. Because it's not a matter... there's always going to be shitty jobs out there. There always has been. There always will be. But some shitty jobs would probably do us good to be eliminated. Okay? Being a Subway sandwich artist is not a bad job. It's a shitty job, but it's not a bad job. You can learn things about that. You can learn things from that. Okay? But sitting in customer service on the telephone all day long, yeah, it absolutely. I can completely understand if somebody wants to jump out of a fucking building. I get it. I've been there. The amount of aggression, anxiety, anger, resentment, insert any unnamed feeling, it's a buildup. It's an absolute buildup. So the feeling of isolation in corporate environments of I'm never going to get out of here, or I don't even know where I am, or I don't even know who my friends are. I don't know what these people are talking about. How many bosses do I have? What's in store for me for the next 5-10 years? Is this even worth it? And you don't really have time to think because another phone call is coming through. A boss is calling, some fucking supervisor is calling you into their office. It's a horror movie in itself. And the idea of the concept of the Backrooms taps into that, but on a fucking incredible level. Community expansion. Fans created detailed structures such as numbered levels, distinct areas with unique properties and entities, hostile creatures, through lack of single canonical sources, leads to competing interpretations between classic minimalists and expanded lore enthusiasts. Kane Parsons adaptation. Kane, also known as Kane Pixels. YouTube Kane Pixels, significantly mainstreamed the concept with his analog horror web series starting in 2022, which introduced specific lore like Async Research Institute and the Low Proximity Magnetic Distortion System. Mainstream film. Parsons directed an A24 feature film released in just a couple weeks ago, which crystallized the lore into a narrative about a therapist searching for a patient, including characters like Clark and Dr. Mary Klein, and exploring themes of trauma and reality distortion. These concepts, these independent concepts that originally did not originate from Hollywood, have been basically plucked, purchased, and then watered down, ripped apart, and basically raped of their purity for the longest time. And that is starting to, it seems like it's starting to die. Like when movies like Assassin's Creed or not John Wick, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the other movie, Max Payne or Doom. These were blockbuster video games, still are. Blockbuster video games with multiple sequels, amazing games with amazing concepts. All-time Hall of Fame video games and video concepts. Hollywood ruined all of them. Assassin's Creed, ruined that. Doom, ruined that. Max Payne could have been good, but it wasn't bad. But ultimately, just, I don't know, it didn't go as far as the fans wanted to. Marvel suffered from this. Not giving the fans what they wanted in one of their phases, which just making some shitty diverse. Either way, but something about the Backrooms, everything about the Backrooms worked because it stayed true. If a major Hollywood motion picture publishing company or director got a hold of this concept, 9 times out of 10 they would have ruined it by now. Especially with, as we discussed just last week, the Oscar qualifications for introducing movies. If you want to be considered for Best Motion Picture, you have to follow these diversity standards. And there's another problem on top of that: money. The amount of money that's now involved in making movies of a high quality we're talking $100 million, $150, $200, $250, $300 million behind it. And all these unions and clauses, they're not doing it anymore. They're failing miserably. There was a movie with Anthony Mackie that made under $1 million, and it had like a $200 million production budget. It was, and this is not the first time that movies like that have shit the bed. You've also had movies, John Carpenter of Mars. fell apart, and many, many others. But let's not shit all over Hollywood just yet, because the concept of Hollywood seems to be changing for the better in some aspect. So, the introduction of independent movies over the last 20 years has started to, it's gained more and more traction due to the fact that a lot of people just don't want to see these blockbuster movies anymore, because first of all, ticket prices are expensive for these movies. They are not true to what the fans want. And ultimately, they're just not good. And there's so many other options of people not wanting to leave the house. People don't want to leave the house because you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have YouTube, and ultimately you have just free movie options. You have video games. But ultimately, people just have other options, and they just don't want to go to the theaters. And you also have, illegal streaming services. So it's a natural effect of, ultimately, I don't have to go to the movie theaters to see a really good flick. I could watch it at home for next to nothing. Next to nothing. But I want to... This Kane Pixels. He started the concept of the Backrooms, basically of, you are in this environment where the environment itself is low budget. To create this environment, literally he created it, he was self-taught. Like me, I edited video. Before 2017, I had no understanding of video editing. I didn't understand layering, special effects, storyline, timelines. I didn't understand. I don't know shit about fuck. But I learned by just doing and creating, and the software was the tools that were needed to create these things, whether they were good or bad, were cheap or free. And the shortcuts you could take to get to destination point A or from point A to point B were available to you online. So the rise of independent work has only gotten better and better. It's amazing how something like 4chan, just the concept, just a shit-talking website, or a site that people talk shit on, introduced a concept, a meme, basically just a thing, and somebody took that idea, put it to paper, put it online, and made it look fantastic. Made it look real. And did it in a very low-resolution way. Because the way that Kane Parsons introduced his version of the Backrooms was through early to mid-90s low-resolution video. Basically, it gives you more creative ability to deliver the reaction that you want without having to use 1080 high resolution, 4K resolution, crystal clear. You could deliver an even better reaction with lower resolution, and yet still hitting the target with 100% accuracy. The first version of what Kane introduced was essentially somebody making like a low-level street budget movie, and then he, for some reason, falls through basically like a crack in the asphalt. But not like a crack, it's just like a portal. He just fell through it from the streets. He was standing on asphalt, fell through it, and then he was in the Backrooms. Now, what do the Backrooms look like? The idea of the Backrooms, let's see here. Just give you a picture of it. This is perfect. Is that? Let's see. That's a good picture. I'll open that one. There we go. Just to... Oh, Jesus Christ. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's pick that one up. Display capture. There we go. Just that those gas tube, yellow lights that are in the ceiling that make that hum, that ambient hum that essentially turns to silence if you're there long enough, but it slowly drives you fucking crazy because it is a noise, a frequency that's just drilling through your brain. But being in the back rooms, the idea is if you're in there long enough, you start to go crazy. And like a casino, it's hard to find your way out. Times 10, almost impossible to find your way out. But a casino doesn't go on forever. But the back rooms, in its original concept, does go on forever. It never stops. It only expands. It's its own universe. It remembers things. But it doesn't remember things in like a copy of a copy. It's like if you print something out and then you make a copy of it. Sure, the quality has dumbed down a little bit, but you could still read the signature, read most of the paperwork, the words on the paper. The backrooms remember something as if you put a piece of paper on the printer, and when you go to copy it, you shake the paper. And then the words become blurred. The picture becomes blurred. That's how it remembers things in a very distorted way. And it basically, it's like it inbreeds what it remembers to where the product is low quality. The entities that are in there are of low quality, low intelligence, impulsive, and dangerous. Now, there are generally two forces that I've witnessed in the back rooms. From the series that Kane introduced to me and to the world. You have the people that enter, and then you have the entities. Well, you have you have three. I guess we'll say three. Because the movie introduced a third factor, which I found interesting. You have the entities that enter the back rooms, humans for the most part, just normal human beings. They get lost in the back rooms, but they're normal. They can, and some find their way out. You have the entities that are in there that are essentially harmless. They just kind of there. They don't really exist mentally. They're gone. They exist. They're there. And then you have the insidious ones, the dangerous ones that have been introduced in a few samples of Kane's work. The monsters that kill whoever enters. Why? I don't know. I don't know why they kill, but that is another thing to discuss sometime down the road. But it is ultimately a dimension. It's scary. It's low budget, but it works. And to say it's low budget, $10 million is a lot of money. $10 million is a lot of money. I mean, I think it was... How much did the original Terminator, the very first Terminator, I think that was like a $4 million movie. Back then that was, early 1980s, but still. A few $1 million. Still a lot of money, though. But to take a star like Chiwetel Ejiofor, I can't believe I know how to say his name. What the heck's his name? Let me grab... Yeah, no, Chiwetel. I'll grab him and throw him on the screen for you. This guy. Some British bloke. I think he's British. Yeah, English actor. There you go. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's great. He is. The thing is, for all that the Oscars, the Academy Awards is doing with their diversity stuff, and I'll bring it up because I said it last week, so I don't want to seem like a hypocrite. When I watch a movie, I want it to be good. I don't want it to send me a virtue signaling, beat me over the head message. I just want to see a good movie. If it makes me happy, if it makes me sad, if it makes me scared, if it makes me cry, if it makes me think, okay, cool. Whatever. Don't give me a character, don't give me an actor or actress because you want to meet a quota. Give me the people playing this movie because they're good. And they're the right people for the role. He's brilliant. He's a solid actor in everything that I've seen. And let's see. Serenity, he was good in that. He was in, I don't remember Children of the Men. I should probably rewatch that. He was in 2012, which was not a great movie, but he was good in it. The Martian, fantastic, with Matt Damon. He was in that. He was awesome. And the movie was fantastic too. That is one of Ridley Scott's bangers. Ridley Scott is known for hitting and missing. That was a good one. But Chiwetel was fantastic in that movie. So there was him. He was chosen for the role for whatever reason. Don't know why. But he's ultimately a very interesting leading man. Now, and you know what? I'll leave it at that. Simply because he was a good... I will assume that he was put in this role simply because he was the right fit. He was given a script. He read it. He liked it. He wanted to be involved. He had no problem working with a director who was barely finished puberty. And after what I saw last night, I mean, that movie actually made me think about ultimately the patterns of life and what we're doing here. In less than 2 hours, it gave me just as much to think about as Schindler's List did. And Schindler's List is a traumatizing movie. It is a horrific movie. And it's based on the events of the Holocaust. But taking a movie for what it's worth, just as a movie, The Backrooms gave me just as much to think about. How we lead our everyday lives. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. The patterns of our everyday existence. Is what we do meaningless? Exploring new territory. The dangers of it. I mean, when people came here to the United States, discovering new territories, it probably felt like it went on forever. When does it end? Thousands of miles. The dangers involved. I mean, when people first got here, the natives that were here, the animals that were here, the environments that they had to trudge through, the ailments, the bacteria, the viruses, absolutely insane, but they did it. Whether or not they could or should, they could, obviously. Whether or not they should, it's up for debate. But they did it. I still am processing this movie. But the fact that they're not up and coming anymore. A24 Films took on this movie, took on this young director with this concept that the vast population, the vast regular movie-going population, has no reference to. They're just like, oh, another horror movie. Not exactly. Not exactly. The ending can be up for debate, but the movie itself was fantastic. I was sweating from the opening scene all the way to the end. All the way to the end. The access of now the ability for low budget filmmakers, YouTubers, people with just simple ideas and very limited resources can now team up with independent publishing companies and make an absolute banger of a film with limited resources. A24 has, instead, like, I understand, like, Anne Hathaway and people like that. You know, Devil Wears Prada? Sure. Running towards these independent agencies for movies. I mean, movie stars are, you know, they're attention whores. They're divas. But the work that they're doing in these independent movies truly shows their acting skills, good or bad. Ultimately, though, if they're not good, these independent studios won't want them, won't utilize them, because they have a limited budget, and they need to hit every time. Whereas somebody like Disney can afford to lose a couple $100 million. Just because they have shareholders, a large dowry, other avenues of making money. Whereas A24 is like, we just do this. These movies have to be good. They have to generate revenue. They have to generate future interest. We just have to do it. But they are taking chances. I felt like that my $17 that I spent, $34, $38 in total, was worth it. The thing is was it worth it? And yes, it was. Absolutely. And you know what's cool is it's been a while since I've stepped foot into a movie theater. And sat people, a very young crowd. That's a cool thing. Very young crowd, and we were kind of annoyed because everybody was yapping through the commercials. And here's the thing. The amount of previews was fucking insane. It was crazy. It felt like 15 minutes of commercials. But as soon as those lights turned all the way off and the movie started, and it started with that ominous tone, that ambient bzzz, everybody shut up. Because it instantly got your attention. It didn't beat you over the head. It hit you over the head with the silence, that ambient buzz. The tension immediately filled the room and everybody went quiet. All the annoying went away. All the annoying went away. This leads me to the conclusion of what's going to happen with the combination of AI and low-budget filmmaking. Like, for example, yes, the Backrooms and the movie Obsession 2. The Backrooms cost $10 million. Obsession costs less than $1 million, as far as production-wise. Sorry. Got responsibilities. Sorry. Anyways, I want to get through this. I want to get my point across. The combination of AI and low-budget filmmaking that has ultimate creativity and ultimate control, without these large corporations, these large groups, everybody forcing their ideas and thoughts, ultimately ruining the script, versus the big-budget movies. A publishing company such as Disney, which also owns Marvel, or Paramount, they can only produce so many flops. They can only fuck up so often. Ultimately, they're going to have some decisions to make. How much money, and I think some of those decisions some of those questions they have to ask. How much can we pay actors? How much can we pay production staffs? What role is AI going to use? How do we just make good movies again? When do we stop making just sequel after sequel after spin-off after spin-off after remake after remake, reboot after reboot? When do they stop? Or do they not? Do they just double down on their own dumb shittery and just fade off into the sunset or crash? The idea of artificial intelligence, or basically, shortcut filmmaking, which is getting better and better, and these independent makers with their own ideas, which is they're getting more and more notoriety. What does the future look like versus these big budget movie makers? I mean, the Titanic was fucking huge, but ultimately, people were steering that ship, it sank. Smaller boats, much smaller boats with much less technology than the Titanic, crossed the Atlantic Ocean safely, multiple times. Does the big budget movie industry feel like it's the Titanic about to crash into an iceberg? What is that? Is there a tragic end, or can they evolve? Now, Kane specifically stated that he wanted to keep a lot of the effects practical. And I'm not going to spoil the movie for you. I don't want to do that. I think it's too good of a movie. It deserves to be treated with respect. But it felt very practical. It felt like the rooms and everything that was built and the items that were involved, it looked and felt like it was there. You were there. It was real. It felt real. Now, the introduction of DIY, do-it-yourself, or at-home special effects have gotten far less expensive with the introduction of AI, higher processors that you can use at home, all these other elements where it's ultimately, you don't need a big team to make these effects. You don't. You can do it all yourself on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. With artificial intelligence, you can get these concepts moving. I don't want to kill the big budget movie makers, but I do want them wounded. I want them wounded and I want them warned. Like, the independent filmmaker is no longer just it's no longer David versus Goliath. It's not. It's after what I saw last night, it's like, okay, you made one of the greatest horror movies or sci-fi movies of all time. When you pound for pound, dollar for dollar, Backrooms versus pick another great horror movie, or Jurassic Park, or this or that. You took a concept of an expanded universe. You created a multiverse, a black hole, an event horizon, new dimension. And you created it with little to no money. And managed to get an A-list actor to jump on board. And do an excellent job. All these actors, all of them, did a fantastic job. They served their purpose. And I do want to dive into the workforce over time concept. And actually, I want to close on these two items here. So the concept of the back rooms, ultimately, we've come up with, we've discussed the fact that the leading actor did not. I mean, obviously, yeah. According to the Academy Awards, yeah, he fits the description of, yeah, this is acceptable. Like, he had to be cast. I mean, who gives a shit? Ultimately, he's not. They didn't have to pick him, but they chose him and he was great. Is this movie deserving of an Academy Award? Yes. Is it deserving of Best Picture? It could be nominated. I don't know if it is Best Picture because it's the only movie I've really seen this year. But, I mean, does it deserve to be nominated? Sure. I don't know. It's got to be nominated for something. Best original screenplay, best director, best director? Fuck yeah. Absolutely. Maybe best actor? Best female actor? Sure. Best original soundtrack? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. All these great concepts, I think, are deserving. But then at the end of the day, who gives a fuck about awards? It matters about the dollars. And this movie, as of right now, it's been out only a couple weeks. Release date, May 29, 2026. $154 million worldwide. This movie is going to make a few hundred million before it's all said and done. Few hundred million. Domestically it's crushed. It made $81 million in its first weekend. $81 million. And last night there was there was a bunch of showings. And the showing before us was full. The one that we went to was almost completely full. So the young crowd is into it. Something that the young crowd likes horror movies. But there was also an interest because there's a following of these Backrooms. People that grew up on this stuff, the young crew. This is something that they gravitate towards. And I'm in 3,400 theaters. That's not a small amount. The widest release was 3,565. But, 38 million on Friday, 24 million, 18 million. Then the weekdays, that's tough. But still, 7.6, 8.7, 6 million, 5.2, 7.9 on Friday. Is that when I went? No, I went. This isn't even counting this weekend yet. They haven't even counted this weekend. So I'm assuming that if it made 80 million last weekend, or 80 million Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is the next weekend. So if it even makes half of that 80 million, we're talking over $200 million right there. $200 million on a $10 million budget. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, the premise of the movie is simple. After a therapist's patient disappears into a dimension beyond reality, she must venture into the unknown to save him. And I like the movie because, number one, it is exactly what I was expecting based on what I watched from Kane Parsons online. The entities were fantastic. Simplistic in a lot of ways, but brilliant in the delivery. And absolutely scared the shit out of me. Like everything, the way it was shadowed, the way it was introduced, obviously some of that found footage, clunkiness, the Cloverfield effect was all in there. And the way it moved from standard cinematography to, low budget found footage cinematography, back and forth. Sometimes, and then you were just drawn in. You were drawn in so quickly. And the movie never let you go. The movie never let you go. It didn't suffocate you. It allowed you to breathe. But it only allowed you to breathe for so long. And you knew something was coming. But you just didn't know what you were going to get. Obviously, a lot of the classic horror movie tropes were in there. But everything was delivered so well. Nothing about that movie I found to be disappointing. Maybe if I went and rewatched it, but at first impressions, I was very pleased. Very, very pleased. The workforce behind a movie. Hundreds if not thousands of people. The credits involved. The amount of people that worked on The Avengers or something. Or Lord of the Rings. Not knocking Lord of the Rings, though. I'm not. The amount of people involved to create something like that, and the amount of money that's generated, and the amount of talking points and ass kissing. How does artificial intelligence and independent filmmakers and publishing companies take a huge chunk out of that till ultimately Hollywood decides we're not going to do this anymore? We're not going to be this big, lumbering giant who can't steer anymore. It takes us forever to turn left or right, where these more nimble, independent makers are just walking all over us. They're outgunning us. They're outmaneuvering us. A lot like when the Spanish Armada took on the English Armada. The Spanish Armada had these giant ships. The British had these much smaller ships, these much smaller clippers, but they could maneuver around. They were faster. They were more agile. And they could just circle around these Spanish ships all day long and sunk the entire Spanish Armada out of existence. You don't need those big giants anymore. You don't need those big publishing companies anymore, like Paramount or Universal. You don't need them. They do come in useful, but you don't need them anymore. You can now make $100 million movies for a fraction of the cost. Very Blair Witchy. So, when does Armageddon take place? When does Judgment Day take place for the large movie makers? And I don't root against people like James Cameron or Ridley Scott. I don't, because I grew up on their movies. I grew up on Aliens and Terminator and Gladiator and The Rock and Heat. I grew up on these movies. Jurassic Park. I mean, Steven Spielberg, when it comes to movies, the thing is, when a Spielberg movie comes out now, it's not like it used to be. It used to be like a big event. Now, I mean, was Ready Player One a good movie? Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it. But it wasn't like it was. And maybe it's not supposed to. But I love a Spielberg movie. And he's been doing it for so damn long. And he's had some misses, but they all do. It's like you're trying. I love his concepts. I like how he attaches and I mean, if it's produced by but direct, but no, you don't want a Spielberg production. You want a Spielberg film. You want it directed by him. You want it written by him. You want him behind the camera. You do. The question is how does a Spielberg movie in 10 years stack up against an indie film like The Backrooms? Is Spielberg still able to make movies? First of all, at this point, Spielberg's going to be 10 years older. He's not a spring chicken anymore. Dude's old. 1946. Dude's like 80 at this point. Actually, yeah, he's pretty close. I think he's 80 at this point. Yeah, he's 80 years old. But a Spielberg type. So a Spielberg director versus the Joe Schmoes. How is this going to pan out in the next 5, 10, 15 years? How condensed is that workforce going to be on a movie set? And is anybody going to even care about the Oscars or the Golden Globes or the Screen Actors Guild? Is anybody going to give a shit in 5, 10 years? They don't give a shit now. The fact that The Backrooms was able to make it to the big screen, that's the cool thing. I mean, could it have been released on Amazon or Netflix? Sure, it could have. But the fact is, you took The Backrooms and you put it on a big screen. You were able to do that. A YouTuber got his movie made on a big screen and was able to, in 2 weekends, over $200 million. He was able to do that. He bypassed all the bullshit. Was able to direct it himself. I think able to retain the rights himself. He got all the credits. Direct the movie. Wrote the movie. Got a big name actor. And also Mark Duplass is in it too. The Duplass brothers? Mark Duplass is in it. So he got great actors to be in this movie. So the workforce over time, to conclude, people afraid of AI taking these jobs or taking jobs in general. It's like, okay, what was the workforce like back in, a couple hundred years ago, a couple thousand years ago? What was your workforce? I mean, a workforce could be, imagine a building full of people answering phone calls or processing reports. We're talking a building of 500 employees. That can be condensed now down to 15 to 20, even less. Before then, what was it? Before then, you didn't have people processing reports or taking phone calls. Those people were in, the military, or they were nobles, or they were politicians. Back then, you didn't have the technology of warfare. And back in the day, you needed tens of thousands of people to line up in a row with blunt objects and butt heads against castle walls and other giant armies. And then everybody else was either royalty or just peasants. That was your workforce. You were either a soldier or a slave. Well, that could be interpreted in so many ways to present day world. But we don't need a military force like that. You don't have to be in the military anymore. Now that we have all these other technologies that are involved with military or that force, people have the option now to go do other things. I don't have to go into the military now. Now I can go be a customer service rep and make just as much money, and I don't have to kill people. So it bred opportunities, other opportunities for people to go and make a living. And make a better living. Instead of having to be a politician, having to be a soldier, or having to be a noble. No, they can just go work at a flower store, or they can go work for a big corporation, or they can go start their own business, or they can do so many other things. But yet everybody can work. Everybody has the option to work. And then the AI is going to do something. It's going to condense that workforce, that Hollywood workforce, even more. But what's going to spring from that? People are going to have even more options to do other things. So I don't necessarily look at the idea of AI in movies or independent publishing companies as a death sentence for Hollywood. If you even want to call it that. I think it's going to breed up people. It's going to breed opportunities for people to do something else. New job opportunities, new industries. As long as they don't end up being slaves to AI, they can you could be a workforce slave. That's true. Ultimately, there's that discussion. But what is going to happen to the Spielbergs versus as opposed to the Joe Schmo, which is the Kane Parsons? Both of them worked very hard. Spielberg works very hard on his craft. Kane Parsons worked very hard on his craft. He's young. He's ambitious. He had an idea. He ran with it. He put all his time and energy into it, and it was good. But he was able to bypass. The difference is between what Spielberg did and what Kane Parsons did. Spielberg went into the big budget industry and had to put up with all of the bullshit. The ass kissing, the big corporate execs, the egos on set, and so many other things I can't even begin to name off. And he made it work. Kane was able to bypass the vast majority of that. Independent film publishing companies, such as A24, a concept he created himself using a free platform in YouTube, free, and was able to get the movie deal. And with his very, very first big movie, grossing hundreds of millions of dollars, and kicking the shit out of a veteran in the industry, Disney, with the Star Wars Mandalorian Grogu thing, where the fuck that was. A movie that's going to lose money. He managed to do it with just the ideas in his head, and he was able to bypass the vast majority of things that took Spielberg years. Spielberg had to make Spielberg was involved in a bunch of projects before Jaws ever came to screen. And even after that, Jurassic Park, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, we're talking decades. Spielberg's a fucking legend, but Kane Parsons can also be a legend too. Because as far as my opinion on Kane Parsons, I think he's up there with Christopher Nolan. To me, I think Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan has definitely had his misses, from my viewpoint. But the Backrooms has taught me something about the future of filmmaking and how it can condense what is absolutely needed, or what is needed ultimately. Like, Hollywood's gotten too big. It needs to be shrunken down. It needs to go back to maybe what it once was. A little more low budget, now fully accessible, still looks more real, looks more realistic than a lot of the other $100-200 million production budgets with all the CGI companies that are involved to make these things, and it looks like shit. Kane Parsons, he puts a $10 million movie out there and nails it. Kane Parsons didn't make Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He didn't. Spielberg did. But Spielberg also made Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was absolute dog shit. Will Kane Parsons ever make a shitty movie like that? Maybe. It's possible. Or does he only deal with what he knows? Does he stick to what he knows? And that is the Backrooms, or the concept of that, or Attack on Titan. I don't know. But what last night taught me was there's a shift in the industry, and ultimately a lot of people like Spielberg, the upcoming Spielbergs, the next Cameron, the next Christopher Nolan, the next Spielberg, the next Michael Mann, the next Ridley Scott. There may be more of them. Or when they do emerge, they don't have to go the big Hollywood route. They can go the route that Kane went, and they can go through the independent. The actors the same way. The creative directors the same way. The cinematographers the same way. They can get access to Hollywood, but through more of a shortcut method. These actors can express themselves in different ways, like, for example, Adam Sandler did. With all these interesting movies that he did, these more dramatic, serious roles that he did, through these more low-budget, independent methods. They don't have to suck the corporate dick anymore. These, the Anne Hathaways and the Chiwetel Ejiofor, they don't have to go into these big-budget movies anymore. They don't have to. They can go and make their nut doing things that, quite frankly, might make more sense to their strengths, might play more to their strengths, and stress them out less, and might make them a better actor, and quite frankly, just might be better off for them than having to take on another Devil Wears Prada 3 or 4 or whatever. This Backrooms is a big reminder. It's a big gut punch to Hollywood. Hollywood is a behemoth, but you're starting to see the idea that Hollywood is more of a dying sun. These large production companies, they're in for a rude awakening eventually, because all these people on YouTube and other channels coming up with their own concepts, their own writing styles, they don't need to bow to Hollywood anymore. And these people that ultimately do get laid off from these large production companies, in my opinion, will get the opportunity to think for themselves, find other things that they prefer doing, or start making things on their own. There's always going to be winners and losers in that industry, but I don't fear AI and low-budget independent filmmakers and all these other items. I don't fear it. I welcome it. Now, I treat AI the same way I treat CGI. If the whole movie's in AI, I don't feel like I'm going to be that interested in watching it. Just like a whole movie made with CGI. I liked Avatar. I really did like Avatar. It was new to me when I first saw it. It doesn't interest me as much anymore. I'm not really that interested in seeing a whole AI movie. I saw it. It was called Avatar. I'm not as interested in it anymore. I want to see stuff that at least feels tactile. And ultimately, I want it, like Kane Parsons, to me, feels like an underdog. Even though he wasn't. He went on YouTube, he went on a platform that was free, created something that people wanted to watch, was all completely self-taught, and did such a good job that he managed to make his way to a movie deal. 20-year-old kid working with a very talented veteran actor, and it was a success. And I applaud him for that. I'm hoping that Hollywood, the big production companies, the big name actors, the big name directors, all that stuff, see what has happened over the last couple weekends with Obsession and Backrooms. Reflect upon their own failures and figure out how to work in this new emerging environment so that their creativity can shine even more without having to kowtow down to large production budgets, bloated actor egos, bullshit diversity and inclusion clauses, and just make the movies that they want to make and move on with their day and be successful. And all these other people that are on the sets that don't need to be there, if they don't need to be there, they shouldn't be there. I think Kane did an excellent job of proving that. But ultimately, I mean, as we all covered today, the idea of Kane Parsons, young director, hits big with something that he built himself. The introduction of A24 and other independent movie makers having enough capital to back him and make a fantastic movie. The idea of AI and low-budget concepts and technologies versus what the bigs are doing nowadays and failing at it in many ways. The workforce over time will obviously be more condensed, or you won't need the big workforce on one project. You can divide them between 2 different projects or 12 different projects. So production times could get speed up. Proper casting versus the diversity clauses. And the Spielbergs versus the Joe Schmoes, hopefully working together in the long run. You can find me on Instagram at @positive_sarcasm. You can email me directly, positivesarcasm@outlook.com. Find me anywhere where podcasts are available and downloadable. YouTube and Rumble is where you can find the video version of this podcast. Question, concern, contact. You guys know how to find me. Go see the Backrooms. Just go see it. It's fantastic. You'll sweat. You'll definitely sweat. In the meantime, thank you for listening, watching, and subscribing. I'll catch up with you all next week. Appreciate you. Just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out here about this Backrooms things. I talked about it a long time ago, and I'm glad I got to see it. And I wanted to tell you right off the bat, an hour of your time, this was worth it. This was absolutely worth it. And this is the direction I think the movie industry should go in. Recorded here from New Hampshire's beautiful seacoast in the Spare Parts Studio for entertainment purposes only. This has been a Positive Sarcasm presentation.